My daughter Rachel is 13 years old. Every year we go to her pediatrician for her annual wellness checkup. Several years ago, when Rachel was 10, we went to her wellness visit. When it was over, her doctor sent her down the hall to have her hearing checked. And then she turned to me and she said, "I want to talk to you about Rachel's weight. I'm concerned. She is still in the 95th percentile, and I am concerned about future disease." Now, you need to understand that at this point in my life, I had already been working for probably 8 years with women through my company, Queen Bee Productions, and we did talks and workshops and theater and events, and it's all surrounding women's issues. And when you're talking about women's issues with a lot of women, well, issues of body size and weight and all that come up very frequently. I also, at this time, had been a member of ASDA for several years by then. ASDA is the Association for Size, Diversity, and Health, and we focus on promoting and educating on the Health at Every Size approach to wellness. Health at Every Size embraces all different body sizes and their ability and the necessity for them to be able to obtain health and maintain health regardless of shape or size. The focus is primarily on helping people reach better health outcomes, and it is very deliberately is not about weight loss. So I had a lot of information at my fingertips at this time. I had talked to a lot of women. I was very aware of a lot of the pain that women experience in trying to be, loving towards themselves and honoring their bodies. And I also was aware of a lot of the research having to do with weight and health. I knew, for example, that in the United States, over 10 million women and girls suffer from eating disorders. I knew that dieting was the gateway to that condition. I knew that dieting didn't work 97% of the time, and even when weight is lost, it is often regained within a 2 to 5 year window following the diet. I knew that there was no research out there, none whatsoever, that confirmed a causal relationship between weight and health. I knew that BMI stood for bullshit measuring instrument. And it is not a good proxy for measuring health. I knew that there were people out there roaming the world that were larger than what was considered average, that were confronted daily with bias and weight discrimination. And I knew there were people walking out there who were smaller and smaller than average, who lived in fear of becoming that other. So I knew all of this. So when her doctor turned to me and said, "I want to talk to you about Rachel's weight," well, naturally, I burst into tears. No, I'm not kidding. And not those little, anxiety tears where all these things are going on and you're like, okay, blink them away, blink them away, blink them away. No. It was the, well, we try to make sure that we eat well, and Rachel goes to dance class and rides her bike, and I'm sure we can improve, but I'm not going to put her on a diet. I am not going to. It was hideous. So there I was, confronted with the fact that even though I had come pretty far in my own journey of body acceptance and hopefully had helped other women to do the same, when faced with a doctor talking about weight, I was right back at square one. So I thought a lot about why I reacted that way. I thought about my own doctor visits. I don't have any recollection of them when I was really young, but I know my weight came up because there's a notation in my baby book that the doctors were concerned about Debbie's weight. She has such a sweet tooth. I was 8 years old. And in high school, I hated going to the doctor because every time my weight would come up, and I never was able to do whatever it was to fix it. I was never able to do it. In college, you go to the health center. It doesn't matter what it's for. Bronchitis, sprained ankle, weird rash. It doesn't matter. If you lose weight, that will help that go away. I don't understand that. My doctor, when we were trying to get pregnant, my doctor's like, "Well, I would like to see you lose 50 pounds before you get started." And I'm thinking to myself, 50 pounds? Are you nuts? I am in my 30s. I am not weighing 50 pounds. You should have told me that last time I lost 50 pounds. Or the time before that. Forget it. Even Rachel, last year, she started her period for the first time. Woo-hoo! We did the old happy dance. It was great. It was very exciting. She was excited. And then it lasted for 8 weeks. Full on. She was no longer excited. So we went to the clinic, you know, and they gave her hormone pills to stop the control the bleeding and stuff. And the doctor hands them to her and says, and you need to lose weight. To a 12-year-old girl who is, I don't know, probably freaking out at that moment because her body is doing this thing that she has no control over. And I was completely blindsided. I was not expecting that at all. I wasn't ready for it. Fortunately, I did not burst into tears. I just took a deep breath and I said, we practice a health at every size approach. We eat well, we try to be physically active, and I have no concerns about Rachel's weight at this time. Thank you. And the doctor's looking at me like I'm speaking a foreign language, and then she left the room. Rachel gave me a high five. That was cool. You know, in my work, I have met several adult women who have never had a pap test because they don't want to get on the scale at the doctor's office. I interviewed a woman who was dying of cancer, started in her breast, went to her uterus. She had to have a complete hysterectomy. When the surgeon came to the waiting room to talk to her husband, he said, well, you know, your wife is so large, our instruments really couldn't reach everywhere. But we're pretty sure we got all the cancer. He was pretty sure. I have met women of every shape, size, color, preference, age, you name it, that live in fear of getting on the scale at the doctor's office because they don't want the subsequent lecture that they feel they're going to get when they go inside. So, now I know that, you know, there's maybe some of you women here that have had that experience. And I know we are all here this weekend to engage in this dialogue on the toxic culture for women and girls. So this is my contribution to that dialogue. This is my big idea. Now, doctors, I find out, go through, when they're going through their medical training, they have what they call clinical skills assessments. And these assessments basically take a look at how they handle the doctor visit. They do it with standardized patients, and they are assessed on their patient-doctor relationship skills, taking histories, communication, doing an exam, you know, giving results, that type of thing, okay? Now, doctors are just as, you know, vulnerable to this toxic culture as everyone else is. I mean, I'm sure many of them experience stigma. I'm sure they hear all the hyperbole that comes over the media, you know, obesity's coming, quick, save the children. You know, all of that. And a recent study at the Rudd Institute found that larger patients experience multiple levels of discrimination in healthcare settings. They also found that medical students do not find derogatory humor towards their larger patients as unacceptable. And they also found that over half of women have experienced stigma in a doctor's setting because of their body size. So, my idea is, what if we incorporate into the curriculum of training doctors, wherever it is appropriate, the idea of health at every size? How bodies of every shape and size can be healthy or work towards health. You don't just have to throw in the towel because someone walks in and they're not what you think is perfect. And at the same time, we talk to them about what the data is, what the real data shows, and the research currently shows of how health and weight conflate, and talk to them about the cultural conditioning that they experience and that their patients experience before they ever meet in that office. If we could do that, I think that we could provide a new generation of doctors with the skills necessary to avoid that unintended bias or that clouded judgment when it comes to body size. And we could give them skills where they can embrace their patients of every shape and size with the same compassion that brought them to the medical field in the first place. That would be a doctor our daughters would not have to be afraid to go to. You know, the year after that wellness visit that I had the meltdown in, we were going back, of course, the next year for her wellness visit, and I was ready this time. Okay. I practiced what I was going to say. I had all my research ducks in a row. I was ready to go. And we get there, we go through the visit, and it doesn't even come up. I'm like, okay, I'm half relieved, and I'm half, oh, dang, I was ready. So, but later that evening, her doctor called me at home and said that she was concerned with Rachel's weight. So I talked to her about it. I told her about my own experience growing up. I told her about, 30 years of diet cycling and how I did not want to impose that on my child when she is perfectly healthy. That didn't make sense to me. And I talked to her about by telling a young girl that she needs to change, how that can impact her self-esteem. And her doctor listened compassionately. Her doctor was sympathetic because that really is who she is. And she would bring to the table, the research about disease and about this. And, I had that research in my hand. I'm like, yeah, well, this is what it really says. And she really had a hard time arguing with me on most of those points. And she started to get a little bit frustrated. And then she finally said, but Rachel's going to want to date soon, and we don't want her to be left out. And I said to her, I said, you want me to tell my daughter, my beautiful, my amazing, my intelligent, my healthy, my funny, my loving girl, that she needs to change or no one's going to love her? And there was silence on the end of the phone for a minute. And then her doctor said, no, I don't want you to do that. You're right. I'm going to do what I need to do to help make sure Rachel is healthy because that's my job. But Rachel doesn't have to change a thing.